Welcome to the Terrible Podcast. Well, sort of. As you guys may know by now, Dave Bryan is on a well deserved vacation, so there is no official Terrible Podcast with himself and myself for Friday. So, in place of that, what I wanted to do today for the website at least was just do a kind of short recap on some of the Steelers news and then get to some questions you guys sent in via Twitter that you guys have asked over the last 24 hours. So, not a official hour long version, a really long, more like 2 hours version of the podcast, but just kind of a mini podcast today to kind of hit the bullet points on the biggest news of the day and to get to some reader emails. Wednesday was schedule release day for the 2021 NFL season, and while the official announcement came for Pittsburgh around 7:45, the league had its show at 8 p.m. There were leaks throughout the entire day, and also in the morning, the official Week 1 schedules were announced for all 32 teams. In Week 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers will play Buffalo on Sunday, September 12th at Buffalo, a 1 o'clock game, and so that will be the season opener for Pittsburgh. Buffalo, obviously a tough team there, an ascending team overall with Josh Allen at quarterback, and one that has overall gotten the best of the Steelers recently. So that's going to be obviously a tough matchup to start the year for Pittsburgh. I'll just read off the rest of the schedule here and then just have a quick kind of reaction to it. You guys know I'm not crazy about schedule release day. We already knew who all the opponents were going to be. Now you're just finding out the order. There is obviously some value in it, but I don't see the need to have, 24-hour wall to wall coverage of a schedule release. I would prefer the NFL just release it all at once, but they're in a business to have eyes on the TV and to, be in that news cycle. So that's kind of how things go. But let's talk about the rest of the schedule. Week 2 will be the Steelers' home opener, hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. They'll be at home for Week 3, hosting the Bengals in the first AFC North game. Week 4 will be on the road at Lambeau Field, playing the Green Bay Packers. Week 5 will be at home against Denver. And then the first primetime game for Pittsburgh this year, 1 of 5, will be Week 6, October 17th, hosting the Seattle Seahawks. That'll be a Sunday night affair. Week 7 will be the Steelers' bye week. Let's hope they keep it this year after what happened last season. Week 8 will be traveling to Cleveland for a 1 o'clock game. That is Sunday, October 31st. Following week 9 will be the first Monday night game of the year, playing host to the Chicago Bears, and another NFC North matchup the following week on November 14th, a 1 o'clock game hosting Detroit. Steelers head out west to California to play the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday, November 21st. That will be a night game. A lot of Steelers Chargers primetime matchups for whatever reason. And then Pittsburgh will be on the road again, week 12 at Cincinnati. They'll play the Baltimore Ravens for the first time all the way in week 13, Sunday, December 5th. That'll be a 425 home game. So unusual to see the 425 slot there for AFC North game versus Baltimore. In week 14, they'll travel to Minnesota. That will be a Thursday night game. So you'll have the Sunday, December 5th to Thursday, December 9th on the road at Minnesota. Week 15 playing home against the Tennessee Titans at 1 o'clock. And then week 16 at Arrowhead against Kansas City for a 425 matchup. Final primetime game will be week 17, Monday, January 3rd, hosting Cleveland. And then week 18, remember 17 games this season, 18 week schedule. It'll be at Baltimore Sunday, January 9th for a 1 o'clock game. Overall, it is the toughest strength of schedule in the league, partially because the AFC North is so strong with Baltimore and Cleveland, but also some, really good out of division games against, Kansas City and Minnesota, Tennessee, Buffalo, obviously to open the year playing at Green Bay, assuming they still have Aaron Rodgers hosting Seattle, etc. So again, I'm not one to get too up in arms, good or bad, about the Steelers' schedule. It is a bit disappointing that they are on the road for the seventh straight year, one of the longest streaks, the longest active streak, one of the longest streaks really since the merger, not the longest, but up there. Then you have the end of the season. That kind of is what stuck out to me the most. Your final 6 games are against Baltimore, Minnesota, Tennessee, Kansas City, Cleveland, and then Baltimore again. So 5 of those teams made the playoffs this past season. Minnesota will not be an easy game by any means. And Pittsburgh has wilted, in December and January. They used to be such a really strong finishing team under Mike Tomlin. I believe from 2007 to 2017, they were 38 and 14 in the regular season under Mike Tomlin. In December and January over the last 3 years, 2018 to 2020, they are 6 and 10. So they better pick things up and change that kind of collapsing, wilting approach at the end of the year because those six games are going to be really, really difficult. There are not any quote unquote easy wins there. And that's going to probably determine, the AFC North seeding when you're playing Baltimore twice and Cleveland once, including Cleveland in week 17 and then Baltimore to finish out the year. Should also note the Steelers' preseason schedule. They'll play the Hall of Fame game Thursday, August 5th to kick off the 2021 season versus Dallas in Canton. And then the next game will be August 12th at Philadelphia, followed by a home game versus Detroit, the only actual home game at Heinz Field, I believe, for the preseason. And then finishing out at Carolina on Friday, August 27th. That time yet to be determined, but nice to still see that Steelers Panthers game to close out the preseason. So that will wrap up the Steelers' 2021 schedule. Again, I try not to overreact or react too strongly one way or another because so much will change, which is surprises and injuries and etc. All the things that are going to happen over the next several months into the regular season. So that is the Steelers' schedule, though. Obviously, it's not a great, I think, overall lay of the land for Pittsburgh, but it is a schedule and really nothing you can do about it. On Thursday, the Pittsburgh Steelers announced jersey numbers for the entire 90-man roster, including all new additions, starting with the Steelers rookie class. This was reported and leaked probably several days ago, but nothing was confirmed, and so I wanted to hold off on commenting on it until it was officially announced by the team. But I'll read off the list of the numbers the Steelers draft class will be wearing. You guys know by now Najee Harris will wear 22. That was confirmed by the team right after his selection. Rest of the class will be Pat Fryermuth, 88, Kendrick Green, 53, Dan Moore Jr., 65, Buddy Johnson, 51, Isaiah Loudermilk, 92, Quincy Roche, 48, Trey Norwood, 21, and Presley Harvin III, number 6. I would say the two most notable numbers there are Green wearing 53 and Roche wearing 48 because of the numbers they're replacing. Their Green replacing Marquise Pouncey, who wore 53 throughout his Steelers career, and same with Roche and Bud Dupree, who wore number 48. That is a surprise to see, especially for Green and Pouncey. I'm assuming Green probably got the blessing of Pouncey. They talked at some point after the pick was made, and so I'm guessing Green asked at some point in this process. But a couple other factors to consider: Green wore 53 in college, so that is his college number. A lot of guys want to carry that to the NFL, and then also there just aren't a lot of numbers to pick from for Pittsburgh. They don't hand out 52 for Mike Webster, they don't hand out 58 for Jack Lambert, 59 for Jack Ham. So there just aren't a ton of numbers to choose from in that kind of 50, 60 range in the first place. And so Green wears 53 and O'Shea will wear 48. Couple of the notable undrafted free agent jersey numbers. Quarterback Mark Gilbert out of Duke will wear number 17. So basically, one of two rookies taking advantage of the new flexible jersey rule changes. And the other would be Calvin Bundage, the outside linebacker at Oklahoma State, wearing number 33. Jamar Watson is going to wear number 50. He's an edge from Kentucky. And Rico Bussey, receiver from Hawaii, will wear 84. So Watson will become the first Steeler to wear number 50 since Ryan Shazier's retirement last season. Kind of surprised to see that, to be honest with you. And then Rico Bussey wearing 84, the first roster player to wear 84 post Antonio Brown. Tight end Milan Richard back in 2019 did wear 84, but he was a trial player who did not make the team. I'll also read off the list of Steelers free agents and the numbers that they will wear. It'll be Miles Killebrew wearing 28. Usually that kind of makes you think he'll be considered a DB, a safety for the team, but with these flexible rules, Marcus Allen wears 27. Still doesn't really give you a lot of clarity there. Kalen Balaj will wear 35. Arthur Millette, number 46. BJ Finney, 67. Joe Haig, 71. And Rashad Coward, number 79. Dwayne Haskins, by the way, will wear number 3. So Finney keeps his old number of 67 and Millette wearing 46. That is not a good look on him, I'm sure. Couple other odds and ends to kind of wrap things up before we get to your questions. Art Rooney II did say that he anticipates Heinz Field being at full capacity for the regular season. That is kind of where things seem to be trending right now. Hopefully, it stays in that direction. So that is certainly encouraging and positive news on a lot of different fronts. He did say the team again is hopeful and optimistic they will be at St. Vincent College, but said if fans cannot be there, if they're not allowed to attend for whatever reason, then Rooney doesn't really see the point in the team being there. So it seems like a package deal, fans and the team itself at Latrobe. Let's hope they go out there this summer. And of course, if they are there, we will be there as well. All right, let's get to some reader questions. I asked you guys on Twitter to send in questions for the show, so I appreciate everyone who sent one in. We'll start with Drew Cook, who says, "Who is the odd man out in the quarterback room?" In my 53-man roster prediction for the Steelers, I had Dwayne Haskins being the number 3, but also kept Josh Dobbs as the number 4 on the practice squad. Of course, those two guys will battle it out this summer. I think they just like the upside more of Haskins more than they will Dobbs. Dobbs, has always done well in the preseason, but he's kind of a maxed out guy. I don't know really what else you're going to get different from Josh Dobbs this year compared to the last couple. But I think Dobbs is a great foil to push Haskins and make sure that he's working hard and doesn't feel like he's guaranteed to have that roster spot. So nothing is guaranteed for either of those guys. But to answer your question, Drew, I have Haskins beating out Dobbs for that third quarterback spot on the 53. Twitter question here from Drazo85. He says, as of right now, who's your favorite to play Hilton's role? And do you believe Roche can challenge Highsmith, if not for starting role, then for playing time? To answer that second question, Drazo, no, I don't think Roche is going to challenge Highsmith for the starting role. I think Highsmith played really well last year, and Roche is a 6th round rookie, and just I don't really see any chance he's going to overtake Highsmith as a starter. And then for playing time, I mean, it's not that he'll be splitting snaps with Highsmith, but there'll be a rotation behind him as the number 3 guy naturally has to rotate in for rest and just things like that. I think probably to start the year, based on the current roster, they don't add any other edge rushers through trade or signing or whatever the case may be. It'll probably be Roche and Marsh splitting about 10 snaps a game, the way that Highsmith and Ola Adaney split snaps about 7 to 10 apiece a game for the first 6 to 8 weeks of 2020, and then Highsmith kind of took over as the full-time backup, playing now about 15 to 20 snaps per game. So I kind of see that Roche rotation, should he get that far, kind of being where he'll start his NFL career. And then to answer your question about who's the favorite to play the Hilton role, I still think Cam Sutton's going to bump inside of the slot and sub package. I don't really see any other better option to kind of play that type of slot role. And so on the outside, you'd have, I suppose, James Pierre and Justin Lane battling it for that right corner spot. We'll see what the new guy Arthur Millette can do. He's played some slot role before too. I don't know if you want him as the full time starter in the nickel, but I think they'll kind of have to figure all those things out in training camp, and especially just how Pierre and Justin Lane look. That may dictate where other guys end up. You could see Antoine Brooks Jr., I think, kind of have that dime role, some more of that Sutton role last year, but in terms of Hilton, in the sense of someone who can play kind of the bigger nickel, maybe you stay, or you can actually go to nickel against some 12 personnel or things like that to match up better on tight ends in the passing game. Brooks will have the size and hopefully the run defense to kind of replace Hilton in that sense of the word. So it may not be one guy replacing that fully. It may be a combination of guys, and certainly, again, how those guys perform in camp, talking about Brooks and Pierre and Justin Lane and Millette, etc. The rookies, Shakir Brown, Mark Gilbert, how will they all perform, will be important to assess as well. So really can't answer that question right now, other than to say that I think Sutton's probably going to be your slot corner week 1 when they go sub package. Matthew asks, what do you think will be considered an above average season for Najee as a rookie? 1,000 yards more or less? I don't know if you're asking about total yards or rushing yards. I kind of take it as just rushing yards. I think, as Dave said, if he can't break Frank Harris's rookie rushing record in terms of just rushing yards of 1055, then it does feel a little disappointing, especially in this 17-game season. That's about 62 yards a game. Hopefully, Harris can accomplish that. So I think obviously you have to look at the tape and the game flow and circumstance. So it's hard to put a number value on it specifically and say pass or fail based off of that. But I would say around 1,100 yards rushing is kind of where my goal is set for Najee Harris in year 1. At Coach Anthony N as, what rookie, undrafted, or drafted DBs do you see making an impact right away on defense or special teams? Not a lot from the draft class itself. It's just Trey Norwood, 7th round guy, so borderline draft pick there. I think a lot of the undrafted guys, though, are interesting. Shakur Brown, I think, is probably the undrafted guy with the best chance to make the team and make an impact. Mark Gilbert was a really intriguing play who had a lot of success at Duke before injuries, hip issues, foot issues, have limited him to just 4 games over the past 2 seasons. So if he's healthy, I think there's a lot of talent there that can be someone certainly to watch. Also, Lamont Wade and Donovan Steiner. So I would probably put it as Shakur Brown and Mark Gilbert, and I wouldn't discount Trey Norwood, but I kind of like Brown and even Gilbert more than I like Norwood right now. Although Norwood's probably going to play safety, Gilbert and Brown are going to play quarterback. But thank you for that question, Anthony. Michael Adesso asks, thoughts on the Steelers' schedule. I know you hate this. How many wins? He says 11. Yeah, I'm not too fond of the predict the win total here in May. So again, so much will change. I don't know really how to take it. Again, we knew who the opponents were, so it doesn't really change the idea of it's a tough schedule or easy schedule or something like that. I feel a little more pessimistic this year. I mean, I feel like it would be the new 10-6. I guess 10-7 would be 11-6 or 10-7. I'm kind of thinking more in that 9 to 10 range, and so again, this means almost nothing to me, and I know you guys will hold me to it, and that's fine. But I kind of have that feeling they'll be in that 9 to 8, 10 and 7 range right now, just because I think they've taken a step back. Maybe not as big a step back as I feared, so that's obviously positive. But the Browns took a step forward undeniably. I think Baltimore stayed about the same, maybe got a little bit better in the passing game overall, and we'll see how that offensive line looks, getting back Ronnie Stanley and bringing back or signing, I should say, Kevin Zeitler and Villanueva at right tackle will be interesting to say the least. But yeah, I'm kind of in that 9 to 10 range right now, Michael. Sean Snyder with an interesting question: who gets the most snaps, Fryermuth, Derek Watt, or James Washington? That's a good one. That's a good one to ask, Sean. Man, my first thought was James Washington, but obviously Claypool is going to be the starter from the word go this year. I didn't look at what the snap counts were last year with James Washington. With Fryermuth, I mean, he has probably the clearest path to play time as the number two tight end right now, but you're going to give him 400 snaps as a underclassman tight end. That transition is so tough. I mean, just based on the current roster, though, unless they sign a Jesse James, which I think they should still do, it's kind of hard not to go with Pat Fryermuth. So if he gets in that 400, 350 range, so I'll kind of order things: Fryermuth one, Washington two, and then Derek Watt three. Carmody O'Brien says, "What happened with the idea that we might go after Chase Winovich up in the Patriots? Please make a great outside linebacker to spell our two linebackers." Thanks, Alex. Thank you, Carmody. That was an idea from Dave Bryan. It wasn't an official report by Adam Schefter or someone like that. I do like that idea, but that was just kind of just speculation trying to connect dots because they signed Judon and the Steelers needed some help at edge. Obviously, still do probably, but there was no real actual report to that idea. So I guess it could still happen. Could you see an August trade? Kevin Colbert's never been afraid to make those types of moves before, so that would not shock me. And so maybe that's still in play. But I think you go into camp and the Latrobe in the preseason and see what you have with your group, see what injuries dictate and things like that before you make any moves right now. Ultimate Elite 11 says, who do you think will win the third tight end spot between Gentry, Raider, and Raymond? In my 53-man roster, I went with Kevin Raider beating out Gentry and Raymond for two reasons. Primarily, A, he's the better blocker than either of those guys. He's also, I think, the better special teamer than either of those guys did well in week 17, making, I think, 2 or 3 tackles on kick coverage. And so if you can block and run down kicks and have some of that value for Danny Smith in the third phase, football, that's probably good enough to make the roster as at number three tight end. Again, I would still be in favor of signing back Jesse James at number 81 spot. Was not taken on the Steelers roster that they just released, whatever that is worth, probably little, but at least worth pointing out. But of those three of the guys currently on the team, Kevin Rader, my number three tight end. Dylan Hebb says, who is the starting center by week 5? I will say Kendrick Green. I think there's a good chance he's the starting center even by week 1, but hopefully sooner than later he can kind of get in that spot and, see how good he is. Just find out what you have in the guy sooner than later. I mean, still a third round pick, so not guaranteed to play right away, but more often than not, those third round picks do play pretty early, especially at a position of need like center. And so I think you just want to see how he looks. And I think overall he's going to fit. If they do move to a more of a zone blocking scheme, which is kind of where this team seems to be trending, he's going to fit that much better than BJ Finney will. Final one here from at GDBM1102. Realistically, do you think this is a playoff team and why? Yeah, I think this can still be a playoff team. I mean, I guess 9 wins, like I said earlier, probably wouldn't get you in, but 7 teams getting in, certainly those odds will increase. But they're still going to be competitive. It's still a talented enough team. You still have a really good pass rush overall. You kept your key players. And you still have Cam Hayward and Minka Fitzpatrick and T.J. Watt, and I'm still glad they brought back Ben. And that run game will certainly, I think, be better than last year. Not that it can be really a whole lot worse. So I think they kind of are closer to the fringe of things right now. It's kind of indicated by my 9-10 loose win prediction. But I still think they can still get into the playoffs. And then once you get into the playoff race, I mean, you never know what can happen from there. So, yes, there's still like a good chance of that. But I think obviously a lesser chance than where I was at a year ago. So that will wrap up today's solo version of the Terrible Podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Dave and I will be back probably for Tuesday. I'm guessing he's going to get back in sometime Monday. So, probably could do a Tuesday, Friday show for you guys this upcoming week. And then we'll have a recap in the schedule, him and myself, and just any rookie minicamp happenings. That's going to happen this weekend as well, starting today on Friday and then carrying through Sunday. So, we'll talk about that whenever Dave gets back with myself. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.